Good evening, and welcome to our showing of Silkwood, 1983, the fourth selection in our current miniseries, Marvelous Meryl Movies, directed by Mike Nichols and starring Meryl Streep, Cher, and Kurt Russell. The screenplay was adapted by Nora Ephron and Alice Arlen from Howard Cohn's 1981 book, Who Killed Karen Silkwood? The executive producers Larry Kano and Arthur Hirsch began work on this film while still students at UCLA's film school. Their involvement in the making of this movie set a precedent in the U.S. Supreme Court regarding providing protection under the First Amendment for confidential sources, as is done for journalistic ones. Silkwood was part of a 1980s cycle of 20-odd films relating to atomic bombs and nuclear warfare, including The China Syndrome, 1977, and Rules of Engagement, 1979. Yet another of Streep's great female characters who confront a serious dilemma. Karen Silkwood was a nuclear whistleblower and labor union activist who died mysteriously in an auto accident while investigating possible wrongdoing at the Carnegie plutonium plant where she worked. When she passed, an autopsy of her remains revealed significant contamination of many of her internal organs, leading to the 1989 lawsuit, Silkwood versus Carnegie, in which the jury gave a $10 million verdict to the Silkwood estate, the largest amount in damages ever awarded for such a case at that time. In the end, after numerous lengthy appeals, the estate was forced to settle for only $1.3 million. The movie itself earned a respectable $35.6 million on a budget of $10 million. Mike Nichols was very careful to maintain factual accuracy. One scene shows Silkwood activating a radiation alarm at the plant. When she was tested positive for radioactive contamination immediately afterward, she was found to have 40 times the legal limit in her system. Nichols took some chances in casting, hiring Cher for one of her first serious film roles, and Kurt Russell, who was formerly known best for his action roles. He chose well because the film was a critical success, garnering praise for all three principal actors and for Nichols himself. Silkwood received 5 Oscar nominations, including Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Director. Vincent Canby of the New York Times called the film a precisely visualized, highly emotional melodrama that's going to raise a lot of hackles. He said that the audience was drawn into the story of Karen Silkwood by the absolute accuracy and unexpected sweetness of its midlife American details. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 4 stars and said that it's a little amazing that established movie stars like Streep, Russell, and Cher could disappear completely into the everyday lives of these characters. The film was shot primarily in Texas, at sites in Dallas, Texas City, and Tom Bean, and in New Mexico and Albuquerque and Los Alamos. The scenes which take place in Los Alamos are all interiors. There are no recognizable shots of the National Laboratory or of the city itself. Plot summary. It's the early 1970s in Crescent, Oklahoma, where Karen Silkwood lives with her roommate Darlie Ellis and boyfriend Drew Stephens, and works at the local Carnegie plant making plutonium pellets for nuclear reactors. She's a labor union activist known for raising concerns regarding her employer's health and safety practices at its nuclear facility. As she testifies to the Atomic Energy Commission, she's found to have nuclear contamination both in her body and in her home. Horrified at this turn of events, Silkwood agrees to provide information for a proposed expose in the New York Times, but is mysteriously killed in an auto accident on her way to meet with the Times reporter. Fun facts about the film. One of Cher's first major tasks was to find the proper look for this film. Nichols had her wash her face and then her hair, letting it dry flat to her head without doing anything to it. Then he and costume designer Ann Roth dressed her in dowdy clothes to strip her of her natural glamour. In an interview with American Film Magazine, Streep stated that Silkwood was not a Joan of Arc character, but was somewhat unsavory, although she managed to do some very good things. The movie posters for the film had a preamble that read, "On November 13, 1974, Karen Silkwood, an employee in a nuclear facility, left to meet with a reporter for the New York Times. She never got there." Despite Karen's fame for her activism following her death, her husband and 3 children never got over her abandoning them. Although they approved of what she had done for the world, they remained bitter about what she had done to them. When Silkwood's real-life boyfriend, Drew Stevens, finally saw the film, he said that it was magical and that it humanized her. However, Karen's parents and her former roommate's mom, Sherry Ellis, did not like the film. Her father thought she was actually a lot smarter than she was portrayed, and Sherry thought that Cher's portrayal of Dolly wasn't accurate. But she had sold the character portrayal rights to the film to the filmmakers, and that made it okay to depict her any way they liked. Cher was very nervous about meeting Streep for the first time, but Streep immediately gave her a big hug and put her at ease. Cher was warned not to wear any makeup at all. Nichols gave her the white glove test to make sure she hadn't cheated. When the movie was in its post-production phase, Nichols and his film editor, Sam O'Sheen, ran into a legal problem regarding how Karen's death was to be portrayed. Carr McGee threatened to sue if anything was portrayed that wasn't 100% factual. O'Sheen said in his 2001 book, Cut to the Chase, that in the original cut, Karen left the union meeting in the office with a friend following her out to give her the papers she had left behind that she intended to share with the New York Times reporter that she was meeting afterwards. O'Sheen said that Silkwood said goodbye to her friend, got into her car, and started it, and the moment she pulled into traffic, the headlights blinked on in the car behind her, and it was an oh moment, but he had to take it out. The shot of the lights blinking on. So all you see is a time jump, where she's driving at night and sees headlights from the car behind her in her rearview mirror. And the next shot is of her wrecked car, so in the final cut it wasn't clear that someone was following her. In the scene where the plant workers are listening to the union doctor speaking about cancer, and Winston is fanning himself with something folded into accordion pleats, it's a paper pamphlet of facts about uranium that was handed out in plants across the U.S. in real life. The name and location of Karen's plutonium plant was the Carr McGee Cimarron Fast Fabrication Site, which was situated near Crescent, Oklahoma. But the movie was not filmed in Oklahoma because the state's governor told the filmmakers that he would appreciate their filming elsewhere. So he filmed in Texas instead. Nora Ephron said that Streep's and Cher's close relationship helped to keep a fun mood on the set, and that they were hysterically funny together, drinking plum wine and cracking wild jokes during downtime on the set. Cher later said that Streep drove her crazy because she did her own ironing. Karen Silkwood is buried in an East Texas cemetery. A few years ago, a TV reporter paid a nighttime visit to her grave on Halloween with a Geiger counter. He found that the grave still emitted enough radiation to set the counter clicking. The film's epilogue states, "The precise circumstances of Karen's death are unknown. It is also unknown whether she had any documents with her. None were found. An autopsy revealed high levels of the tranquilizer methaqualone and some alcohol in her bloodstream. Oklahoma police ruled her death a single auto accident. A year later, the plant shut down." Things to look for: Cher's toned-down makeup, hairstyle, and clothing. Karen setting off the radiation alarm in the plant. The tightly centered scene, for legal purposes, of Karen's death in the auto accident at the end of the film. Look for Winston's accordion-pleated uranium pamphlet at the union meeting, where the doctor reports on uranium's toxicity, and note the film's epilogue. Now it's time to view Silkwood. Sit back, settle down. Please remember that it may take a few minutes for the film to roll. Enjoy.